Call the meeting to order.
The meeting has been posted according to open meeting law.
Roll call.
President Seeger.
Here.
Trustee Alexander.
Here.
Trustee Nugent. Here. Trustee Jensen. Here. Trustee Renucci.
Here.
Trustee Smalley.
Here.
Trustee Wisniewski. Here. Thank you.
Just a quick reminder for everybody, we do still post these meetings via Zoom and then through YouTube. So the only way anybody can hear us is if we do use the mic. So make sure that we keep that habit. With that being said, citizen participation per Village Resolution 2017-01. Anyone wishing to address the Village Board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject can be anything, whether on the agenda or not. The Village Board should not engage in a discussion regarding the comments because it was not part of a publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of the citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they are participating in a public hearing or specifically allowed by a majority vote of the Village Board due to the involvement in the agenda item. So with that being said, would anybody like to speak during citizen participation? One more time, is anybody like to speak during citizen participation? All right, if no, I will close citizen participation and move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately.
I move to approve the consent agenda. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Miscellaneous business, consideration of recommendation from Community Development Authority to approve facade grant for David and Maureen Allen, 2087-2093 Division Street, East Troy House, and Zinn's Mercantile, and Annette Rohde, 2606 Main Street, Rohde's Towing and Sales.
I'll make a motion to approve the facade grants for the businesses listed.
Second?
Any discussion?
Is there a time limit as to when this has to be completed, or do they have to start it at least?
There is a 1-year time limit on them. I can't remember if it's I think it's 1 year from signing the agreement. So after the approvals, I'll issue agreements and then we'll sign the agreements.
Okay, and again, I'm not trying to split hairs, but is it 1 year to complete or 1 year to start?
I have to look at that. I don't know if it's complete or start, but there is a time limit on it.
Do you remember what it is? I think you're right on that. I thought it was 1 year to complete, yes. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider fencing at the grandstand.
Okay, so we've talked about this before. Park and Rec Director Vicki Mashinsky came to me with this recently and said, you know, we're about to repaint this grandstand, and we've talked about fencing in these sides, the areas where you enter the grandstand, in an effort to fence it off so that it's will hopefully head off some graffiti and vandalism. And essentially what the proposal before you is to fence the ends again with a gate with a lock so that when we have a special event, there's a baseball game or whatever, a key can be issued to the organization and they can unlock it and utilize that grandstand. This is a project we did not budget for in 2021, so if we do not move forward with the using of surplus funds, I would recommend we get it in the capital budget for next year.
Can I ask a question, Jason, as far as because I looked into this back when I first came back on the board, and
Okay.
I was shut down because everybody said it would look like a prison. So they decided not to put the fencing up or the gates or anything. But my question is, how high up on the sides are they going to go with that century fencing so that if kids drag a picnic table over, they can't stand on that and then get up and over?
So it's within a foot of the top. So in other words, you won't be able to climb over the top.
Okay.
And you're right, there has been some back and forth on it, but, you know, we've had a couple of what I would consider close calls. You know, we found areas where there was potentially a fire lit within the grandstand.
That's been going on for years. They start little bonfires on the benches to stay warm when they're out there
I would agree it's
congregating.
an unfortunate situation, but like we mentioned, we're just about to put quite a bit of money into painting it, so this will help to preserve it.
And issuing a key for its use is really no different than the bandstand, for instance, right, which we
That's
already
correct, there'll be
do.
a process where, when you do your special event permit, you'll have to check out a key to utilize it.
So I'd make a motion to approve, the 8824 fencing at the grandstand.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Preliminary operation budget, direction discussions and direction to staff regarding service levels and wage assumptions.
So, each year at the very beginning of the operation budget process, we come to the board and ask if there's any specific direction regarding service levels, either reductions or additions, and any services that you'd like staff to look into, as we're going through that process. Is there any feedback on that?
With regard to services, have we gotten feedback on how we changed the large pickup situation with John's?
The bulk pickup?
Yeah.
Lori, have you heard anything? I have not heard anything.
I haven't either. I think most people are utilizing the service as intended. I don't know how many calls John's has. Chelsea might have some, information on that. They might be collecting data for us.
But we haven't gotten any complaints about it, that sort of thing, because that was a reduced service.
I have taken a couple of phone calls, and I think it was simply people that were uninformed. And I know we had tried to get the word out, so, and I'm talking really literally a couple of calls in the past year, so I don't think it's been too terrible.
And they're still getting, the 12 pickups a year. It's just they have to call to arrange for the pickup rather than the last Tuesday of the month. It was the electronic item that was kind of a reduction in service, but we really haven't heard anything on it.
No, because they can still utilize that bulk pickup for their electronics. We haven't gotten complaints, but we've gotten questions. We've directed them and explained it to them. Has code compliance had?
I guess our only issue is some people still don't know, like Jason said, and they'll put stuff out, and then, so Christine will call Johns and say, when are you doing your next pickup in the village? And like the next one is August 6th. So that's what, Friday or something, they're doing one. So people have already put their stuff out there, and then we tell them they gotta drag it back. And they're really upset that they have to drag it back, thinking, like, it just happened this week because last Tuesday was the last Tuesday of the month. So a lot of people put big stuff out there. And then when we call them, they're like, okay, and then they call Johns, and then it's August 6th. Then they gotta wait, and then they gotta pull it off.
So they haven't called John's yet when they're putting the, because I was gonna say, maybe we talk to John's and ask them to remind people that they need to wait till the night before to put this.
Right, but like Jason said, some people don't know it, and they're putting it out there, and then we call them and say, you know, it's not gonna happen, you have to call Johns, and then it doesn't happen until August 6th, so.
And if I remember correct, wasn't this something Johns had asked for? Okay. It's not something we changed, it was something they asked for, and I think it was to hold rates, I believe, was part of their reasoning.
Correct, and one of the things when we had met with them that I remember him discussing is during COVID, they were so overwhelmed with the amount of houses being cleaned out, and they had to keep calling back trucks every time they did bulk pickup because they had no idea how much to anticipate, so this helps them plan better. But from my observation, I don't think there's any, consistent day of the week that they're doing it. It's just when it falls on the schedule. We had a Saturday pickup when we did ours, so, I think it just is when it falls on the schedule for them and works out.
Saved gas for them as far as planning, so they can plan their routes better for their staffing as well as their gas consumption.
Can we maybe put a couple more Facebook posts out? Maybe once a month, put a blast out there?
Yeah, we certainly can, we can try to keep communicating it. We did try numerous avenues, and, sometimes it's just hard to get some people, but, I know it was in our tax insert, but yeah, I can ask Chelsea to continue to push that out there, and hopefully it helps get the word out.
Maybe what we can do is ask Chelsea to put that out every third week, so that if people are thinking about doing it the last week of the month, they're gonna see that the week before. So you could schedule it for every third week. Okay.
Okay, so the other item I had on there was just, I wanted to run by the board what we are putting as preliminary wage assumptions in the, budget, which is what we have put in there, the last couple of years. A 1% adjustment to the salary schedule for cost of living, and 2% increase for employees within, performance range. Obviously, there's certain criteria that I attached to your memo that must be met for employees to get those increases. And then I explained how employees within that step structure, how that works for them. One of the things I wanted to mention to the board that I got today was I did get our net new construction today, the preliminary, projections, which I didn't have when I wrote this memo, and it is the smallest increase I've seen in years for the village. I suspect it has a lot to do with COVID and the lack of construction that happened last year. I'm gonna have our assessor just double check that and make sure that that coincides with his records for net new construction. But we are looking at only a $9,900 increase in our levy next year. When I've talked to Ellers about that, one of the things that we've talked about is that we really have beefed up our levy for capital, and, you know, the way that we're gonna be able to make general fund work and balance is we're gonna have to start reducing that capital levy again, because there's nowhere else that that money's gonna come from. So that's not good news. And then also in my memo, I explained that the library is asking for additional part-time position, which is a $16,000 increase. I did get some good news from him today. It sounds like his, level of funding through Lakeland, is gonna increase probably about $10,000 next year, so that absorbs some of that cost. So really my projections for the wage increases exceed the levy increase, which is not a new story. We have been hearing that through the years, and we've managed to balance. The other thing we have to consider in 2022, we've been projecting that TID close out, and that will increase our levy about $125,000. So, are there concerns with the assumptions that we're putting in the budget? Obviously, this isn't approving this by any means, but it's what we incorporate in our draft budget, and we can modify that.
We made adjustments for inflation. I know you mentioned here about wages, but I'm thinking like, you know, capital projects and operations and other things, you know, materials that we're gonna need in 22.
As far as our capital budgeting and those type of things?
Yeah, I guess any budgeting where it's like, oh, that's gonna have an inflationary factor that, you know, maybe we kept it, you know, 1-2% every year, but we need to, you know, reconsider that.
Yeah, I guess I'd defer to Jason on that, 'cause the things I budget for, are more of the salaries and wages and my contracted services, which are easier for me to look at the individual costs, like the data processing and things like that. Jason, are there any things that you need to be considering that on?
So as we talk about capital projects, it's tough. I mean, we take a snapshot and do the best we can at that time, and, you know, especially right now with material shortages and things like that, it can have a drastic effect on pricing, but we do the best we can at the time.
And what's odd in this environment, though, is we've gotten good bids, though. You know, which is completely opposite of what we were talking even 2 years ago. We weren't even getting bids on some projects, so.
Is there anything, so you're talking about services, and I know like we were talking about the John's service, but that's charged back to the citizens on a fee basis.
Correct.
Is there anything, and even if it's a service that we consume, like, Digicorp or, you know, what, that because of these numbers, we should look at and discuss as a board whether we should, you know, roll back the extent to which we're using them. And we may find that there's not any, but should we, you know, at least re-examine it?
You're referring to the contracted services, reviewing contracted services and see if we should roll back any? I think we'll talk about that at a staff level and see if there's anything. There's nothing that comes to mind off the top of my head, because a lot of the contracted services we're relying on, we are doing so because in a larger municipality, it would be an employee on staff. So there's a lot of them that I don't think we could go without.
Yeah, and that's fine, and it may be, not fully eliminate, but maybe we don't use as much, and maybe you all do that review and you come back and just say, there's not, 'cause we have these requirements.
Right, right. I would say that one of them that I've pretty much reduced to zero, but maybe I might use them occasionally, is Grafe. We're not really utilizing them anymore. So the CDA fund, as I alluded to in my memo regarding the facade grant, they're gonna have a large surplus because of that, so.
Just a real quick question, kind of coming back to the other topic about the, net, improvements in the community. Is that verified through Scott Johnson? 'Cause when I've talked to him, he's explained that he's busier than he's ever been.
Correct, but what I'm getting today is reflective of the building permits pulled in 2020. So we have to take a pause and think about what 2020 was. And, right now, yes, we're doing 7 homes in the Lake Bluff subdivision right now. And I think, from the things we're working on, I think 2022 is gonna be a good year, but 2020, I think, was a pretty slow year. I can't really think of much as far as new commercial development or anything like that. But I am gonna verify that number. I wanna talk to our assessor, 'cause he gets the new building permits, so I wanna confirm that, number is correct, 'cause it does seem pretty low to me.
You gotta remember too, Belinsky was finishing phase 1, and they didn't have vacant lots. They were basically just finishing what they had started, and it was only a few homes.
In 2020, the only, building permit, single-family homes we had in 2020 were 3 in 2020. And does it count commercial? Does it take into account commercial?
It does take into account commercial.
The only permits that were let in 2020 for commercial was, the Complete Piers had a permit issued, and Toronto's was originally started then, so.
But that's in the TID, so we don't get that.
Exactly, and there was no multifamily.
Even Toronto's, I don't think they had built enough to get much of an assessment. They pulled the permit, but I don't think there was anything.
No, it was the original.
They had dug a hole, I
Well,
think.
it was probably for the one that burnt.
Oh, okay, that makes sense too.
So that one, it wouldn't be counted, and then, Mr. Nigelson started that building, so that was it. Just thought I'd check that out for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do you need anything else, Eileen?
No, I think, it sounds like everybody's okay with these assumptions being included in our draft of the operations budget. We'll talk about, contracted services, review that, see if there's anything, that we consider, moving forward, and I think I'm good. I don't think I need anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, moving on to ordinances and resolutions, ordinance 2021-08, repeal and recreate section 400-86 through 400-93, establishing a basis for sewer service charges.
I will make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-08.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to reports. East Troy Chamber of Commerce, mid-2021 room tax report. Does anyone have any questions for Vanessa?
I'm looking forward to Christmas again.
Hey, Vanessa, I know that the 2020 was a big challenge for you guys, and I had some conversations with some people that are on the board for the chamber, and talking about, rent for the area that you have and things of that sort, a room tax, being involved with that whole thing. Have you ever considered the opportunity that, maybe, a non-rent facility within maybe this building might be helpful for you guys? I mean, it was kind of an eye-opener with that 2020 chaos that we had. But I'm so sorry to interrupt. We still do these meetings via a Zoom to then populate on YouTube, so just.
Okay, sorry. So, we did consider a lot of different options. I think it was 2014 when we moved our offices to the location that we're at. And, just having that proximity to the square when we do so many events there is really very convenient. But like I said, it's not something that we would completely, I mean, if we need to do something like that, it's not something that's off the table. But, for example, like I have the farmer's market we're doing at the Hive Tap Room, and like having to go in the middle of an event when you're running something to print a piece of paper or get a piece of scissors or tape or stuff, things like that are, but it's not like we couldn't figure out ways around it. It's just been a convenient, thing to do.
Well, like I said, it was,
And the light show too. It helps to be out there every single day.
Right. The biggest thing for me was just that, I did field those calls.
Yeah.
That identified that you were having an extremely challenging year.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a number of chambers that closed down.
Yeah.
Across the state because they couldn't, weather that 2020 storm that hit us all.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make sure that we're exploring all options that are the
Yeah.
best things for you, the chamber as a whole.
Yeah.
And making the right decisions for that.
Yeah, it was a really, really tough one, but, we luckily did have the light show, so that was kind of a light at the, but, hopefully we don't have to experience that again, and our businesses will come back, and we'll be, back where we were, but it's been a lot of rebuilding for everybody. But it's a collective rebuilding, so it's not like we're the only ones, so. Did anyone else have any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to Airport Manager's Quarterly Report. Walter is here, via Zoom, right?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Does anybody have any questions for Walter?
I think most of the detail that you find in the advisory board minutes will summarize the unusual things, but primarily really my job is in three areas. One is the wintertime snow removal, summertime grass cutting, and then airport manager, they require about a third of my time for each one. And of course, each one brings its own challenges. But those that are unique, that I haven't shared with Matt or just Jason, they will come up in meetings, and so if you have questions of those minutes or anything that's brought up in those minutes, those will give you a good guide as to what we've been focusing on. The advisory board minutes.
Walter, this is Fortune Renucci. I have a question.
Yes.
I have to ask, because I was reading your airport manager's report, and it looked familiar, and I went back to the 2020 fourth quarter report, and I looked at the two of them, and they're almost verbatim, word for word, almost printed in the same paragraphs. Now, I got to ask this question, because it begs the question. How much time, how much work do you actually put into these reports?
I try to minimize duplications. When I sit through the discussions of the advisory board, I don't see any advantage in rewriting everything for a quarterly report. The issues that the day-to-day issues. I mean, really, in those years, my job hasn't changed. So I don't know what kind of new things you're looking for that are not already in the minutes of those advisory board
Walter, I guess I
meetings.
just have to say, because, I'm not out at the airport, I know Jason is sometimes. I don't know how many other trustees get out there, how often, but, I guess a little bit more of information other than the boilerplate there that we're getting would kind of help. I don't know. It would also kind of be nice if we could see you in person instead of via Zoom, but I'm hoping maybe eventually you can see it to your way to come into a meeting.
I'd be more than happy to do that. However, bear in mind that when this quarterly report came due, I was out in the field attending a fuel farm issue that required my attention. Basically, it sucked dry all my time. You want me to stay up at midnight to write a report that is already a duplication of what you see in the, you're asking me to spend my time reporting instead of spending my time getting the work done, is what I'm trying to say. But I
Walter,
do
yes, that's exactly what we want you to do. We want you to stay up. We want you to get this thing written out. We want you to take a synopsis of what's happened throughout the time frame of you having duties between these reports, and highlighting either goals that you've set for yourself in that position or challenges that have come up. For us just to see that you've mowed the lawn and plowed the runway, we expect that to happen. We expect you to do your job. But this is part of your job as well. So we do need a more detailed report, and I was extremely disappointed in a basic photocopy of your last report.
My last report,
The fourth quarter report.
you mean the third quarter, the current one, yeah, okay.
So just to be clear, yes, we are expecting you to highlight what goes on, even though it comes through in our reports, through the airport reports. We still want you to have some kind of synopsis of what happened. And I'd like to see some goal setting for what can change in that airport area as well within those reports.
I understand. I did have prior reports, and there really wasn't any time to discuss them, and I wrote them. I spent the time to write them, and the information was already available through Matt and through Jason, so I thought it was a redundancy.
It's not.
So-
It's part of what we're expecting of you. And if, when you come to us with a complete and full report like that, and we do not have discussion, that's a good thing. Because right now, the discussion that we're having is not a good thing.
Well, I can list a lot of things that are not good too, but that's not my purpose.
And I'm not here to argue with you about it, Walter. I'm asking you to simply
Right,
do your
no.
job. We pay you to
I
do it.
don't have
We
any-
expect this report to be done in full. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Walter? All right, moving on to Booth Lake minutes from 5/19 or 6/16. Any questions?
Are they having a good year out there?
Yeah, they're having a good year, yep. Slow start though, was it late May, early June was cold, and then it heated up, so, yeah.
How did the beach work out once with the road being redone and they came in, dumped the sand, and got everything worked out?
Yeah, it looks really nice, yeah, it's beautiful.
How about CDA minutes? Any questions on that from 5/24? Any questions for Eileen on the administrator's report?
Just a couple of real quick ones. I was kind of, under staff updates. It just said here, Taranami impact fee timing and amendment to developer agreement. I know we discussed that, they asked to put that back 1 year when they first started.
What they asked for was, right now, the ordinance states that impact fees are to be paid at building permit issuance, and they asked for it to be paid at occupancy, which the board agreed to. It can be difficult sometimes in larger developments like that to have them paid at building permit issuance, because as Scott Johnson says, a lot of it's dependent on, the size of the meter, and sometimes they don't even know that when they're pulling the building permits.
Sorry, I just, coordinated spectrum service to be installed. Is there progress on that?
On the business park or on Spectrum?
Well, it says here, I'm sorry, I have to look.
Was the Spectrum service for TID 4?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not to that point yet. I do have some pictures I'll be sharing with you guys, that we got some overhead shots of the progress. It's already 2 weeks ago, but it's pretty cool because you can see the cul-de-sac and everything forming, so.
Okay, the other question I had is on routine tasks. I have to beg ignorance, I have no clue. On item number 4, it said invalidated CU for Lake Geneva Coffee Roasters. What's CU stand for?
Conditional use, that's Lori's task. That's when, you know, a business has a conditional use and they go out of business.
No, I totally understand that. I just didn't know what CU stood for.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
How about, are you good? Yeah. Okay. How about any, questions, for the DPW second quarter report?
Sorry, I got another one here. Jason, on the, Lake Bluff Phase 2, it says here both lifts of asphalt are in.
Correct.
Don't we usually put the binder course in and let them do the construction and then do the top final course?
So that is the way, if you remember, phase 1 happened that way, and phase 1 didn't go so well. So we decided in phase 2 that we were gonna try it differently and do both lifts of asphalt at once. And you also need to remember now that we have a tool for managing that through the building inspector. When they pull their permit, they have to take a bond out to protect us for each section of road adjacent to that lot.
That's fine. So then, in other words, then any damage that's incurred is going to be paid by Belinsky.
That's correct, and obviously before they will get an occupancy permit, it will have to be documented of any damage to the street or curb.
That's all I got.
So this is sort of a question for you, but also sort of a question for you. Is Andy at the BOA, addressed the funds, the $36,000?
So, no, he is not. We have committed to, I believe, all 3 rounds now, and we still have not received any funds. And last time I asked him, and that's probably well over a month ago now, I keep getting the same answer, we're working on it. So I think it's just an administrative issue on the BOA's end, but we have not received any funds yet, to my knowledge, unless you know something different.
No, we haven't received any funds yet.
Do we need to escalate this?
I can ask him again, absolutely.
I'm just saying, and then if he comes back with, we're working on it, like, up the chain?
Sure.
Jason, with Mike moving into Bill's old position, what was Mike's position that we have to backfill? I can't remember.
Wastewater plant operator. Day-to-day maintenance tasks, things like that. And we have filled the position, so.
Cool.
All right, move on to closed session, I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985 1G, to confer with legal counsel for a governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation, which is likely to become involved, 2019 sidewalk project. And 1985 1C, to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Department head evaluations, police chief.
Second.
Roll call, please.
President Seeger.
Yes.
Trustee Alexander. Trustee Nugent. Trustee Johnson. Trustee Renucci.
Yes.
Trustee Smalley. Trustee Wisniewski.